welcome to this extremely special interview of the Quint post Lok Sabha elections 2024. And today we have with us Mr. Yogendra Yadav, who, dare I say, is the man of the hour, probably the most talked about man in political circles after maybe Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu, because of a prediction that he made quite a few weeks ago. Yogendra sir, thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy. So in that case, I think the first question, so the first question that I'll ask will be about your tweet. We will show it for the viewers, in which you had predicted a bhuchal in UP. I guess then the first question is, sir, how could pollsters not see that bhuchal, or did they see it and they deliberately chose to ignore it and not put the word out?
Thanks, Rishi, for noticing that. May I say that pollsters or any psephology or any prediction cannot and should not be the man of the moment. If there is any man of the moment, it should be the ordinary person, those who've actually fought this election more than political parties. It is public, which has brought about a huge, dramatic, and such a lovely change in this country. About the tweet, yes, I was like everyone else. I had read the media, I had followed the pre-election opinion polls, and I was, because I take polls seriously, I must confess, a little depressed that, okay, this seems to be happening. And, whenever I feel that kind of depression, what I do is that I go out and start travel, which is what I did. And UP is the first place we went to travel. I did one round, thought maybe did we get it not sufficiently right. Then I did another round of travel in UP. And on 26th of April, I said very clear, Uttar Pradesh mein rajnetik uchal, political earthquake. And why did I say so? Because it was so clearly evident on the ground that what was being reported by the media and by opinion polls was not simply there on the ground. We did not have any special instruments. We did not use any peculiar, special, smart technology. We did the most elementary thing, which is to go out in the villages and speak to very, very ordinary people, spend time with them, go beyond their initial response, ki, haan ji, Modi ji ko denge, aayega to Modi ji. We would sit with them for 5 more minutes, 10 minutes, acha ye kya, वगैरह. फिर आखिर में दोबारा पूछते थे. By then, half of them would say, नहीं, इनको तो बिल्कुल नहीं देने का मन है. मैंने तो सोचा आप बीजेपी से आए हैं इसलिए बोल दिया था. In other words, we found, and that's what I had written there in that tweet, that if you speak to Samajwadi Party and Congress voters of the previous election, almost no one was shifting. I mean, we didn't meet anyone who would say, I voted for Samajwadi Party last time, I won't vote for them this time. BSP voters were reluctant to speak very much. There was a slight shift away to BJP, but there was a bigger shift away towards Samajwadi Party, which surprised us because that's not what we expected. But they were saying so. But the most important finding was that when we spoke to people who had voted for the BJP in 2019 and or 2022, 1/4 of them, 1/5 of them were clearly saying, I shall not vote for them this time. So from that, we simply drew this conclusion that there is a shift away from BJP, which is a very elementary conclusion. And I'm very surprised, how did the media miss it? I don't like to read motives into that. But yes, the fact is that the entire mainstream media has been so completely one-sided. I must say it without mincing my words, that the conduct of Indian media has been shameful. The minimum duty of the media is to keep reporting things as they exist on the ground. And for a good media, the duty is to hold power to account. In this instance, the only one the media was trying to hold to account was the opposition, which is ridiculous. And elementary factual details were being held back from the public. For example, electoral bonds, one of the biggest scandals in this country. Most people on the ground had no idea because the media never told them about it. So so it was quite clear to me that the media was misinforming the public. And that is why, as a political worker, I thought it was my duty to open up, to say clearly this is what is happening. And since people remember something of my earlier psychological work, I was hoping that people would take me seriously. And I'm glad they took me seriously, and I'm very happy that the final numbers happened to be correct. But my final numbers being correct is not such a big part of the story. The important thing was in through the course of election to keep puncturing the false narrative which was being put out by the BJP and echoed by the media.
Thank you, sir, for that answer. And actually, for viewers, I would just like to put in context. Yogendra sir said ki it will be very tough for the BJP to even touch 50. I think that is what that tweet ended with. And
Yeah, in Uttar
yeah,
Pradesh, yeah.
in Uttar Pradesh, yeah, that would be very tough for the BJP to touch 50 out of 80 in UP. And I think the BJP ended up with 33. So
Now,
again,
remember, the narrative at that point was that BJP will not only retain 62 seats that it had, but actually BJP will go up to 72. And someone said that if they get all the 80, don't be surprised. This was the narrative when I was reporting and saying, Baba, there's nothing of that kind. And as I kept saying in my interviews and others, that look, I don't have a thermometer. So I can't tell you whether it's 100, 1.8 or 102.2. But I can touch the forehead and say कि बुखार है. ये क्यों नहीं आपको दिख रहा? I'm amazed.
so in that case, I was discussing this with a lot of my colleagues, and they thought we best place this question to you. Although answering this might take some time and research, which is um, questions like so. You also mentioned in your tweet issues like the constitution, issues like reservations, they seem to have resonated with people on the ground. But the strange thing then why is there a disparity between the opposition's performance in UP on one hand, and then in Bihar and Madhya Pradesh, even Chhattisgarh, which has such a big tribal population, on the other? That is one puzzle I think we are all trying to decode. Ki unless UP may the vote consolidation worked, but in other states it didn't, and we have to look at vote shares. But UP may, why did those votes translate into seats, but in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, etc., it did not?
Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat is an entirely different story because BJP's stranglehold, political stranglehold and strength, and the Congress's weakness is of a different order altogether. However, if you look at Haryana, UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, all four states had swing away from BJP of somewhat similar magnitude. Jharkhand was 8%, Bihar was actually 9%, UP was 8%, Haryana was 12%, from what I can recall. Which is to say, BJP's vote share went down in all the states. So, what was different? Why do we have different results? One, because the starting point was very, very different. In Uttar Pradesh, the starting point was 13% deficit for the opposition. In 2019, the opposition was ahead, BJP was ahead of its dominant, the main opposition, SPPSP at that time, by 13 percentage points. In Bihar, the difference was 23 percentage points. In Jharkhand, it was less. In Haryana, it was bigger. So, in different states, you have different starting points. So, a similar wave has differential impact in terms of seats. That's one. And why is that that starting point remained uneven? Because in Bihar, BJP finally went in polls with a very formidable political coalition and a very formidable social coalition. No matter what you say about Nitish Kumar, and I had a very poor opinion of what he did, but you cannot deny the fact that it actually is a very strong political coalition. The moment Mr. Nitish Kumar shifted from Mahagathbandhan to BJP, well, the equation shifted from 25-50 to 15-25. I mean, the whole thing, or let's say from 10-30 to 30-10. That's really what happened. So that is partly the difference. So we should not assume that because the results were different in UP and Bihar, The undercurrent was of a different magnitude. Also, we must not assume that therefore the effort made by political parties were good or bad. That's one of our mistakes. In politics, we somehow assume that whichever party did well must have campaigned well. That doesn't happen. Most of votes are decided before the campaign begins. And we often tend to imagine that some of the campaign strategies, speeches, and these things made a huge difference. Very often they don't. Uh, it is true that in UP something special happened. Towards the end of the campaign, I haven't yet analyzed the phase-wise data, but it was quite evident that towards the fifth, sixth, and seventh phase, there was a very special chemistry. Rahul Gandhi and Akhilesh's rallies were creating a new kind of mahal which wasn't there earlier. So that may have contributed, but these are small factors. These are not big things.
And then, sir, as you're saying, I suppose the big thing then is the voters' anger, the voters' distress, which leads me to, I just have two more questions left, but this is the one that leads me to, I think, perhaps another puzzle, which is that UP Vidhan Sabha elections happened exactly 2 years ago, I think, 2 years and 2 months ago, February 2022. Uh, BJP sweep, even though Samajwadi Party's performance improved. Um, do you think, sir, that in 2 years, a lot of voters have changed their mind, or is it a case of voters, again, like Delhi, preferring somebody at the state level, but somebody else entirely at the national level? Because, again, this is the trend which we are trying to decipher. And what would be your initial thoughts on this?
It's a very good question. We don't have very confident answers. You see, normally BJP tends to do better in parliamentary elections than it does in the assembly elections. So if that logic were to operate, it should have operated in BJP's favor this time rather than against the BJP. Uh, Clearly, many people have changed their mind between 2022 and now. In 2022, BJP's vote share was about 43, 44%, and the opposition was 34%. Now, both of them have reached about the same level in the parliamentary election, while the BSP has gone down. So clearly, BJP has gained some votes from BSP and therefore must have shed a few votes to the SP Congress. So clearly, voters have changed their mind. That's evident from the election data. Why have they changed their mind now and not in 2022? Is a question for which I don't have very good answers because the issues remain the same. महंगाई, बेरोजगारी, आवारा जानवर, all these issues remain the same against the BJP.
And
Things
4 months
that work
after Ram
for the
Mandir.
BJP.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and that the interest that much we can say that Ram Mandir did not work. Ram Mandir was not an issue when I was traveling, speaking to ordinary people. If you remind them of Ram Mandir, they would speak about it and they would say positive things about it. But that was not an issue was which was pivotal to their decision making. You had to remind them of that. Normally, they would not talk about it. What worked for BJP was ration and the law and order performance, the perception of law and order performance among the ordinary people. Now, you could say that almost all these things existed in 2023. Why is it that these factors did not trigger a change in 2022 and have triggered a change now? Is something of a mystery to me, honestly. But there comes a point where you say, all right, I've waited too long. I did not raise these questions first time, second time, third time. Now I have to raise it. So something happened. The two or three special things that may have happened is among Dalits, there was in a small section of Dalits, I would not say all Dalits, but in a small section of Dalits, there was a clear perception about threat to constitution, threat to reservation. And remember that for Dalit, reservation has the same significance as land has for the farmer. Number two, among Muslims, it was a clear question of whether we would remain citizen of this country or would we be reduced to second-rate citizenship of this country. And therefore, they absolutely strategically aligned behind whoever could defeat the BJP, which is SP and Congress. They did not waste their votes on BSP or anyone else. And among some citizens, I could see concerns about democracy, tanashai, arrogance of BJP leaders, inaccessibility of BJP leaders. These were new elements. All other elements were there. Now, is it that these new elements triggered everything else? So something has triggered it. When does it get triggered and when it does not get triggered remained something of a mystery. So when I went to the ground, I initially, for the first one day, I didn't quite believe it. I said, ये सारी बातें पहले भी कह रहे थे, अब क्या है? So we said, all right, we now every time we would establish कि इसकी वजह से आप वोट चेंज कर रहे हैं. And they said, yes, kar rahe. So then you have to believe, once you hear all these things on the ground, you have to hear. But I'm still unclear why all this got triggered during the Lok Sabha election and not in an assembly election, which is where normally these local issues get triggered. So it's a good question. I don't have a very good answer.
Thank you, sir. Perhaps that is the answer for now. And the last question, sir, then, which is not about UP, but it is about, I mean, you spoke quite a bit about the media even right now, and we all watched your video, your polite rebuttal to Rajdeep Sardesai and Rahul Kanwal. But one more question that we did have, which is, sir, exit polls, the way they projected 400 par, is it not the responsibility of media houses to also question that a little bit? Again, unless they have vested interests, because it is hard for me to believe that, or for all of us to believe that all exit polls gave 400 plus and all media channels unquestionably ran it. And there was this whole mahal of invincible BJP. So don't media houses have a responsibility there, other than, of course, showing the truth, but even about exit polls?
Look, frankly, exit polls going wrong doesn't worry me that much because in the last instance, exit polls are harmless affair. People have voted. And the only thing that can get affected by that is Satta market, stock market. And I couldn't care less for these things. What worries me more are pre-election opinion polls, which set the tone. And you remember all the pre-election opinion polls also said 320, 330, 340 for BJP. They dutifully reported 400 plus for the NDA. Someone took them to 411. Now, this sets the tone for the way people vote. That worries me even more. So these pre-election polls had set the frame. Entire reporting by the media took place within that frame, which was set by pre-election polls. And yes, there should be accountability. The trouble is that we have something very strange, almost obscene has started happening on Indian television, which is if you get it right, you dance on studio floor. And if you don't get it right, you hang someone within the television studio. I mean, this is not done. This is utter unprofessionalism. What is required instead, and the trouble is in our country, we instead of actually critiquing something, we get into motives, we get into blame games. To my mind, what is required is the following. Indian opinion polling industry seriously suffers from a lack of transparency. And the fault lies less with the pollsters, but more with editors, channels, and media houses. Can we ensure, instead of doing this theater of dancing and crying, can we have the following things? Number one, that every channel or editor should say, I want to have a proof that you are actually conducting a survey, that you are not cooking up figures. Number two, show me the methodology. And we will publish the methodology. You see, in earlier years, you would say, Akhbar mein to itna chhap nahi sakte, space nahi. Now in the internet, you can publish 100 pages if you want. So methodology has to be given and substantiated. Number three, tell me the sample profile. You say you have interviewed 1 lakh people. tell me how many were rural, how many urban, how many men, how many women, how many Dalits, how many Muslims, how many upper caste. Why don't you give me a breakup of that so that I can match it up with the population figures? I see the CSDS doing it all the time religiously, which is why I continue to take them very seriously. I don't see many others do so. I must, however, say that Access 5 India poll did make some of these things public. Although the sampling methodology still beats me. I still don't know how exactly were they sampling things. So should it not be mandatory for everyone who says I have done a poll for them to make it mandatory? Let me take one poll, for example. Someone says I have done a sample of 1 crore. How has that been done? It has been done through IVRs. Now, I, as a viewer, should I not know that these were IVR calls? It's there somewhere hidden in some details. And should someone not also tell me that what was the response rate of these IVR calls? My experience is that IVR calls have a response rate of 2 to 3%. You call 100 people, only 3 people respond, which makes it such an unreliable instrument for a survey. Most of the pre-election opinion polls were never conducted on the ground. They were conducted only through telephone. Why should I not be told about it? You simply say these were catty phones. No one knows what is catty. Why don't you clearly tell me that these were telephonic surveys? And then you also need to tell me, how do you expect to cover that bottom 20% of the population, which has no access to telephones? And besides all this, one final thing. This country seriously needs conflict of interest news, conflict of interest information. If someone is a pollster, like I'm on your channel, I'm speaking to you, your reader knows, your viewer knows that I'm from Bharat Jodo Abhiyan, which has taken a political position. Bharat Jodo Abhiyan has campaigned against the BJP. I always began all my interviews by this disclaimer that the viewer should know. Should the viewers also not know these about pollsters? If there is a pollster who's giving the entire country a major poll, should I not know that his bread and butter actually comes from BJP? That he's actually the main pollster for the Bharatiya Janata Party? There's nothing wrong with that. It's a perfectly legitimate thing for you to do. But it is my right to know this. Why am I not told about this? So I would say, please stop this drama of dance and crime. Please be transparent. And if that is the one lesson we can learn, we would have much better research, much better polling, which is important.
Yogendra Yadav, sir, thank you so much for your time and your insights. We look forward to speaking with you again very soon. And genuinely, thank you so much and congratulations on getting it right. I know it's the public's victory, but small victory.
Congratulations to the public of this country.
Indeed.
They are
Thank
the
you so
ones who
much.
done